Hello everyone, and welcome back to another wife-aggro plays video, where we take a break from our typical stream outtakes and spend a little bit of time looking at a game that you can find fairly inexpensively, usually for sale or whatever on Steam or Humble Bumble or maybe Good Old Games or wherever you look for inexpensive games. We found this game on Steam, and it's called Car Mechanic Simulator 2015. I kind of enjoyed it, but we're going to talk about that, and so let's get going. So we're using the 5Ws format for this series of videos, and so the first thing we're going to take a look at in Car Mechanic Simulator 2015 is who you play. Welcome to your garage. In Car Mechanic Simulator 2015, you play a small auto shop owner. In a small auto shop, a couple lifts, some tools, your desk has a computer, a phone, and a camera, and you start the game with a little bit of money, no experience, and one job waiting. And you kind of want to build from there. Initially in the game, you're going to do a lot of small jobs, changing the oil, or looking for something that's rattling, or little acceleration problems, or braking problems, or whatnot. And you're going to kind of build your skill set from there, using the tools that you start out with. So what do you do in Car Mechanic Simulator 2015? Well, it's probably not going to come as too big of a surprise that you're going to repair cars. You're going to be a mechanic. The game starts out pretty simply. You get jobs through your phone, and that's just people calling you and saying that they have some work that they need to get done. And so you accept different jobs, and there might be something like, for example, here this car has a brake problem, and the job order information will tell you exactly what you need to look for. And then you just go fix the car. Early on in the game, that's where you're going to build up most of your money. You can see here, I was only about $8,000 into it with about 2,000 experience points. I just kind of getting going. The game does a pretty good job of making it easy to visualize what you're working on. You can see the parts that I'm having to replace are rusted out and look nasty, and so it's easy to see what needs to be fixed. You do have like a list from the job order that tells you what that you have to replace to complete that particular job, but it is kind of fun just to be able to see, look under the hood and see that, oh hey, this is filthy, or the transmission needs to be worked on, it's all pitted out and whatnot. So they do a pretty good job with that. So let's talk a little bit about what you do in the game. The shop comes with a couple of lifts, like you see here, and that allows you to get underneath the car. Some of the steps that you need to do, like for example here, taking off the wheels, you can only do from underneath the car, whereas some can only be done from looking at the engine block or whatever. And there's a little bit of a hinky mechanic to that you'll kind of figure out. All the different parts on the car are connected to each other or to the frame by connecting bolts or whatever. So in order to get to some pieces that you have to replace, you have to remove further ones out. So there's a lot of tearing down and rebuilding, which is kind of the fun of working on cars to begin with. The game includes a couple of different views. There's a disassemble mode and an assemble mode, and then they have what you're going to see here, which is called the examine mode. Examine mode allows you to look at all the pieces of the car from below on the left or up or above, and by left clicking on that part, you evaluate whether that part's worn out, and they're color coded based on what you've learned. And later on in the game, you'll get tools to help you speed some of this up that will automatically color code pieces for you. But early on, when you're just getting started in your shop, it's pretty much all manual. So what I'm showing here is me putting the car parts back together after repairing the part that I need to do. And I wanted to show that when you first start out, this is fairly slow. And when you get a little bit better and have the money to buy better skills, you speed this up quite a bit. So those bolts go in really slow. And then once the job is done, you can finish the job and get money and go back to your phone and pick up another job. You see, I've gained a little bit more money, a little bit more experience, and that's going to help me down the road to build up my shop. And so while working on the cars, you gain experience represented through experience points. And for every 1,000 experience points, you can gain an upgrade point, which can be used to buy tools, repair tools, and diagnostic equipment to speed up your ability to do your job in your shop. You can see there I bought fast unbolting, which will speed up that bolting we were just talking about. And also, I increased my repair ability, which would allow me to, instead of having to replace all the parts on a job order, sometimes I might be able to repair some of them and make more money on the job. Not all of the parts that you take off for a job or replace for a job can be repaired. A lot of them are like disposable parts, like the filters and belts and whatnot. And then there's some other ones like the pistons and the exhaust system and parts of the brakes that just can't be repaired. But you can sell them back to get some money for, to pay for the parts you had to buy to complete the job. And then through repairing the ones you can repair, obviously you didn't have to buy that part, so you save money that way as well. Off to the side of your shop are these bays that you can open up once you have the experience points and the money to do so, that allow you to do more types of jobs. For example, this one here is a paint shop that I was able to open up, and then I started getting jobs to restore cars back to their factory color. And then once you get a little further down in the game and you're repairing cars you bought at auction, you can paint them whatever color you desire. And that's quite a bit of fun. To avoid having to visually examine all the parts of a car, the game allows you to buy a couple of tools using experience or upgrade points to speed that up. This OBD scanner here takes a look at the whole ignition system of the car and exhaust and tells me what needs to be replaced, like that catalytic converter right there. Another of the bays that you can buy is called the test path. And the test path just kind of takes a look at the suspension of a car. And so by driving the car through the two tests, you're going to check out the brakes and the suspension of the car, and that saves a lot of time tearing that all apart and manually looking at each piece. That first test there, see, we just tested the brakes in the front, and then we'll pull forward and test the brakes on the back. And although it does show you that there's a difference there during the test, at the end of the test, you'll be able to see everything that the test path detected altogether. And here we're testing the suspension, rattling the car around. And what is kind of cool about this game is they do a really good job, not only visually in you being able to see what needs to be repaired, but also when you're doing this kind of test, or when you're doing the drive test, which we'll show later, you can actually hear the rattle of pieces that need to be replaced and whatnot, which is pretty cool. But anyhow, coming out of the test path, I can see there's, about 7 or 8 red pieces that I'm going to have to replace to finish that part. There are a couple other locations in the game besides your garage, such as this old factory test track, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's an old factory that you're going to use to test the acceleration, steering, and braking of the cars. And it's a diagnostic tool. It's kind of fun. Put you in the car. Each car behaves and handles a little bit different. Some of them are super fast. Some of them are, basically little hoopties that can hardly accelerate to 20 miles an hour on the whole course. But you do get kind of a feel for what you're going to be dealing with after you've driven through this a couple different times. The steering will feel sloppy on cars that need, have problems with that, and the braking and whatnot. You can actually bounce cars in the air if they've got suspension problems here. And then I think I hit this wall pretty much every time I tried to brake towards the end, but at least it didn't do any damage. But like all the other diagnostic tests, it tells you what's wrong. Tells you some of what's wrong with that car. There are some other tools, which I'm going to just kind of leave you to discover on your own. And you should. The game's quite a bit of fun. It's well priced. But I did want to point out this oil drain, which is hands down my least favorite tool in the game. I just could not ever get that thing hardly to line up under the oil pan the way it was supposed to. And you have to use this to avoid oil changes and whatnot costing you a $100 cleaning fee. And you'll see here, I completely miss the oil pan, even though it kind of looks like it's lined up, and that cost me $100 in the job. And early in the game, $100 is quite a bit of your money. And there's just no easy way to see that oil drain and where it's supposed to go. Maybe with enough time I would have figured that out, but not my favorite. I'm going to go ahead and combine these next two W's because they're either obvious or irrelevant to the game. Where the game takes place is, some city. It's your garage. It really doesn't matter if it's America or Europe. And when it takes place is fairly current. The automobiles seem American, but there's a lot of foreign cars, and the DLCs that you can pick up even adds to that. There was a nice Mercedes DLC that you could pick up. But that brings us to why, and the why section of these videos is typically where I make a case for or against a game. And in this case, I'm a fan. I think for the price, this was been kind of a fun game. It's definitely a niche game that you have to be interested in working on cars, or just interested in cars in general to play the game. But if you are, I think you'd enjoy it. And in my opinion, you need to have something to aim for in a game. It has to have some sort of progression. And for Car Mechanic Simulator 2015. That progression is what you're going to see here, whereas once you've got enough money and a good set of tools in your shop, then you can go ahead and kind of do the fast and loud route of buying a car that's maybe a little beat up or just needs a little bit of repair, taking it back to your shop, tearing the whole thing down, replacing it to whatever parts you want to replace to make it worth selling, and get it back out there and sell it to make some money. The auction, as you can see here, is pretty basic. There's usually 10 cars for sale. Some of them are a little more fun than others. Some of them are, pretty old. Here, for the purposes of this video, I bought 2 different cars. One of them I thought looked a little bit like a Vet. One of them, this one here, looks a little bit like a Nova or Chevelle or something. But both look like they'd be a lot of fun to work on. There is a kind of a collect 'em all kind of situation in the game where you're gonna have a garage that you can you can buy once you have enough money. You can go ahead and just fix up cars for yourself and pull them out and go through, I guess drive around the factory or whatever. But and one thing I show here that the DLC kind of brings these cars in. That was kind of a free DLC right there that came with the game. But I did end up buying 2 of the other DLCs just because I wanted to work on trucks and stuff as well. So once you've found the cars that you want to work at auction and brought them back to your shop, and you can purchase all 10 cars as long as you have the space for them. The garage is just another bay like the paint shop was, where once you have enough experience and money, you can just buy it and store a ton of cars. But once you've brought it back to your shop and you're getting ready to do your fast and loud thing, you don't have a garage full of gas monkeys. It's still just you, but you bring the car back and start tearing it apart. So while earlier in the game, the goal was to do jobs for other people as cost effectively and efficiently as you could, do as little work as you can to get the job completed. Once you're buying cars at auction, you're pretty much trying for a full restoration. So every body panel and every part that you can repair, you want to repair. Anything that you can't repair, you want to replace to get the car back to 100% shape. And once you've done that, the game will give you a nice bonus. It's possible that you could probably just do enough repair on an auction car to make money on it. And maybe if you bought one when you didn't have enough money to put it all back to 100%, you could go that route. But the game does give you a pretty good cash bonus for repairing the frame here and then repairing all the parts for the car. Or if you can't repair them, replace them. Getting the car back to 100% is way more profitable than just repairing it enough to sell. You can see there I had all the tools. The next part of this video is going to be like a really high-speed run through the restoration of this car so you can kind of see all the detail that they put into the models. I do want to point out that I feel they did a pretty good job with these models for these cars. Not only are there plenty of pieces that you'll see here as we tear this whole car apart, but just the texturing, the way that this car obviously has a lot of miles on it. All of the little tasks that you have to do, the bolts to remove and rods and spark plugs and whatnot to take a car apart are there, where it's recognizable to somebody who's done that before. But they did stop just short of the game starting to be annoying, where things like you don't have to worry about gaskets, or you don't have to worry about what torque head bolts or for that matter torque patterns for the head bolts or anything like that. So all the pieces are there, and the game's fun in that regard, but I think they did a good job not making it too realistic. I do want to say that at this point I probably had 10 or so hours in the game. Some of the stuff I'm doing, because it took me a long time to figure out what part had to come off first. The game does identify it for you. Like if you want to take a piece out, it'll show what piece has to come out first in red. Oh, here's the oil drain again. At this point, I had gotten a little bit better at it. I think I actually hit there. See, I didn't even miss it that time, but still annoying. Anyhow, what I was saying, it definitely, if you're trying to take a piece off that you can't, it'll tell you what piece has to come off first, so that's kind of handy. But there's enough things to do to make it feel like you're definitely, running a shop somewhere. And you will get faster as you play the game and become a little bit more familiar about, what parts come off first. Earlier on in the game, you'll get to the point where you know when the wheels have to come off and when they don't. I got pretty good at buying all the parts I knew I wasn't going to be able to repair. And what I'm showing you here is what we were talking about earlier, where there's a couple of places where you have to jack the car up, jack the car down, jack the car up. It's enough realism, a little bit annoying, but nothing to complain about, really. And you'll see as I'm pulling parts off that there's the occasional flash of red, and that's the game's indicator that there's a piece that I have to remove first, which really helps with people like me who, probably didn't do a whole lot of total restoration of cars before. I will say that there's a particular part that I had a hard time finding in the game, and that was the gas pump, which is located on the top of the gas tank. Because you don't really have a view of above the gas tank, that's where the pump comes out from. You'll see it here in a second. I could never see why the tank wouldn't come out. The visual indicator didn't exist. I had to find just the right view. So there you see we finally got the car all pulled apart. So now that everything has been removed from the car, it's time to start buying the pieces that we were unable to repair, or at this point I knew I couldn't repair, and then going over the workbench and repairing all the pieces that I can. And you'll see I'm using a tablet there. That's one of the tools that you can get off your toolbox that I highly recommend getting as early as you can. This is going to just blow through me doing repairs, but early on in the game, the only way to get parts you can't repair, or, before you can even repair, the only way to get parts was to go over to your desk and use your computer, which required doing a lot of walking back and forth across the shop. But there's a tablet that you can purchase as one of your tools, where the diagnostic tools and everything else are at, that allows you just to hit T from right where you're working and order parts. And I highly recommend it. And so what I'm doing here is selling off all the parts that either cannot be repaired, like filters and tie rods and whatnot, but also if I tried to repair a part, and some of them have to be successfully repaired multiple times, if I fail on any of those attempts, then the part becomes unusable and I have to sell it as well. And in some cases, like the engine block or heads or the transmission or something, failing to fix it or repair it could make a big difference on how much money I make for the job that I'm doing. And so what you see me using here is the tablet. The tablet is a tool that's available on the toolbox, where you find like the OSD scanner and you're able to buy some of the other stuff. I highly recommend you get it as quickly as you can, because early on in the game, before you have the money or the experience to get the tablet, whenever you're putting stuff together like this and you don't have a part, you've got to truck all the way over to your desk and buy the part on your computer, and then truck all the way back to the car that you're working on with the part, which takes up an awful lot of time, but once you get the tablet, you can pretty much just buy parts from right where you're looking at it, and saves a lot of time. What's kind of cool is as you progress through the game and you get to where you've done a couple of these restorations, you definitely start to feel like you know what you're doing a little better. You get a feel for, like I just bought a whole bunch of bushings because I knew how many bushings I was going to need for this particular suspension in the rear end. And same applies for like the different types of engines and the different types of transmissions and wheels and whatnot. So it's kind of neat. It makes you feel like you're making progress, which, like I said earlier, is an important part of any of these games to me. Well, so I feel like I've made the case for this game as far as being enjoyable. It's if you're into cars, or you're a fan of Fast and Loud or those types of TV shows, and want to play something that's kind of in the same vein, I think you'd enjoy it. I certainly did. One kind of interesting thing that I thought I'd bring up is this, being a sim game, kind of a technical sim game, would I consider this to be an educational game? So maybe. Uh, Everything seems to be named correctly. The game does a pretty good job of um, associating auto problems with the correct parts, so that and I'm not a mechanic by any means anymore. And so I mean, but it does feel like if you're going through all the steps of diagnosing problems and then finding the parts and repairing them, it kind of streamlines that for you. It makes it a little easier than it is for people who actually do this for a living. But I do feel like there used to be a category called edutainment. Edutainment? I think I'm saying that right. Sort of educational, entertaining games, and I think that if that category still existed, this game would probably fit into that. It's entertaining, and I feel it's somewhat educational. I certainly wouldn't take this, wouldn't play this game and then just try, go try and take one, auto mechanic exam or anything like that. But I think you'd know a little bit more about your car from playing it. So, what I'm gonna do is this is kind of this rebuild that I'm doing is wrapping up. I'm gonna shut up so you can kind of watch. Maybe I'll turn the music back up a little bit, but I'll meet you at the end of the video. And so once you've completed your build, and you can see that everything is 100% condition, there's a pretty good restoration bonus that makes it worthwhile. You can either put the car back into your garage as your own personal vehicle, or what I was doing was sell that car and buy 2 more from the auction and repeat. The game's quite a bit of fun. I think, if, like I said before, if you're into this kind of stuff, you'll enjoy it. One thing that I always wanted to do with the cars that I was restoring is paint them a better color. That, I don't know, marine blue, whatever that is, just wasn't for me. So I went in and kind of, being a Corvette looking thing, I wanted to do a nice Stingray red. So $1,500 out of my profit just to have a nicer car, I think. But it does kind of show what the options that were available for the car. Also, of course, once you've finished a car, grab your camera, and that's basically the mechanic for the Steam snapshots, for your screenshots, I guess. I was grabbing 2 pictures of the cars that I built and throwing them up on my Steam profile, but pretty fun. I thought when I first saw the camera that was going to be the way you sold the car, but no, it's just the same. Basically, click on it and get rid of it, but still fun. Boom. And then, of course, once you've got that car done, go out to the garage and grab another one. So that's the end of our wife-aggro's plays video for Car Mechanic Simulator 2015. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed playing the game to make it. And if you know of any games that you think we should add to the series, let me know. I'm always looking for new games. So anyhow, thanks for watching, and see you next time.